Daniel is the co-founder and the chief brand officer of Reebonz. He was formerly actually an analyst from a bank. You know, and now he's called chief brand officer, right? He graduated in 2009 with a bachelor's in business degree, focusing on majoring in finance and economics, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And some of the recommendations of him that I took from LinkedIn, these are all public news. So
okay.
Yeah, okay. So Daniel is super dynamic, energetic.
That was planted there,
Right. How much do you pay him for this?
Quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. Visionary leader. He's a people person, and he always provides support to all parties to ensure work is done on schedule. Right. He has deep knowledge in growing online business, vast experience in sales and marketing areas, and he was saying that I do hope I will have a chance to work with you. So I guess a lot of people here, the students, would hope for that chance as well. Okay, so that's a little about Daniel. Okay. Now going a little bit about Reebonz. Okay, Reebonz was founded in 2009, so I suppose that's when you graduated.
Yes.
Right? Reebonz is a trusted online platform for buying and selling the widest range of luxury products. With an exciting lineup of coveted design brands, personalized service, and buying and selling options, they make luxury accessible by giving you more from the world of luxury. Okay, their seamless shopping experience ensures Reebonz offers an extensive range of new and pure luxury bags, accessories, watches, jewelry, shoes from coveted design labels, and curation of the world's finest merchants sold in our exclusive sales events. Okay, so that's what they do. Okay, so without further ado, I'll just get into a bit of Q&A. Okay, with him first.
Yep,
as you know, just to share a little bit, my name is Mark. Sorry, I forgot to share a little bit of myself. I'm Mark. I'm actually a student in SMU in my last year. I'm actually the president of this club called the Eagles Inc. Okay, we run an entrepreneurship club in Singapore, in SMU, where we fund businesses. We are part of IE as well, so where it's actually SMU's incubation center. Okay, so without further ado, I'd just like to ask you a few questions.
Okay,
so from there, you can answer. So the first question would be, what do you envision Reebonz to be, and more importantly, why do you even start Reebonz in the first place?
Yeah, okay, good question. So anyway, I think first and foremost, thanks all for coming. Quite surprised to see such a big crowd actually, but thank you. And I think we just keep it casual together with Mark. And if you have any questions, I think more importantly is to answer whatever questions that you guys have as compared to what I'm going to share, because whatever I share is just broad-based, but if you have specific burning questions, I'll try my best to address them. Okay, so back to your question. Reebonz was founded late 2008. We launched the website 2009, so that was already 8 years back. So it was in my last semester when I was in school. The reason why we launched was actually because prior to that, I already had other e-commerce businesses. So I was always very interested in e-commerce as a whole. At that point in time, locally, there was probably no e-commerce player. A lot of people were also very skeptical about e-commerce, to be very frank. When I went to brands and I approached them, they were saying, Singapore is so small, what for have e-commerce? Shopping mall is just at the MRT station. Why bother, right? Why would you want to start a website? How will people find your website? Why would you want to spend time delivering, having warehouse and all that? So that was the sentiment on the ground at that point in time. But when you look at sites like eBay and all that in the US, 2008, 2009, they're already very big players, Amazon obviously. So that was always something that intrigued me. And I guess the founding idea behind Reebonz was really, we saw a few factors converging. Number one was obviously a increasing mobile penetration or web penetration at that point in time, right? So people were more comfortable doing a lot of things online and buying movie tickets, insurance, etc., etc. Travel, for example, was one of the first industries to tip, right? So we're thinking obviously then shopping could then be next. Number two, rising middle class in Asia, right? So for Reebonz, our specific target market actually is mass affluence. It is not the uber rich, that is not our market. We are very clear that the market segment that we're trying to penetrate was ladies who maybe got their first paycheck and they wanted accessible luxury. So it was very, very clear that that was the first market that would tip. And thirdly, was just the fact that with the prior experience that we had from other businesses revolving around e-commerce, we thought that that would be a great time to start up something. And I guess with those factors converging, that was how Reebonz started in 2009. Vision for Reebonz, I think very clearly, it is luxury made accessible. Right? So I think for us, it is about building the easiest and most trusted way to buy and sell luxury in Asia Pacific. So that is our vision, that is our aim, and that is our goal. And right now, strategies will change. We have evolved the business a lot over the last 8 years, but I think that core of making luxury accessible, changing how people consume luxury online, that is still our goal. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, so just moving deeper into Reebonz, I did a little bit of what Reebonz is. Reebonz is definitely one of the largest e-commerce business I know, actually locally speaking, or even in Southeast Asia. So this is something that we face as students, actually, as entrepreneurs. One of the biggest problems we face is in the area of globalization. Right? We're in an era where now there's a lot of buzzwords going machine learning and tech and blah, 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 and all those. But really what you're talking about is how do you actually scale yourselves beyond the borders of Singapore. Now, looking at the US, the reason why we couldn't mimic the US way of go-to-market strategy and scalability is because they were not in a fragmented space as much. If you look at Singapore, try to scale to Malaysia, you have to divide by 3 in terms of currency FX risk, right? You go Indonesia, you have a whole new ballgame over there, right? So how do you, because you started in Reebonz in Singapore, I suppose.
Yep.
And how do you actually now, spread your wings across and just go out there to other parts of Singapore?
Sure. No, I think, yeah, very valid question, especially at that time in its infancy. So, I mean, to be very frank, we started March 2009, so I was just sharing Mark that actually last week was our 8th anniversary. 9th of March, we launched the website. So 6 months into the business, you realize that, hey, this business actually, there's some potential. There was traction at that point in time. So the question in our minds as a management team at the very start, the founding team was, do we take it overseas? Do we scale it out and really become the dominant, I guess, luxury e-commerce player in the market? Or do we say, let's stay in Singapore, be profitable, own the market and be the number 1 here? So that was really a decision that was playing on our minds after about 6 months when we got traction. But I think we said that, hey, maybe this is a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity to build a Singapore brand in e-commerce out of Singapore. And we said, okay, let's go for it. And obviously, we raised venture capital and we went for it. So, but it's a very good point, right? Because in a big market like the US or in China, for example, there's no such thing as localization. If you win that whole market. That one market is enough, right? But for us, we started in Singapore. Obviously, it has its benefits. Very stable government, environment, easy to start up. And all that. So that was the benefits. But obviously the cons was small market, small domestic market. So how do you scale out a business across 8 to 10 different markets? And I think the key there was really localization and adaptability. So number 1 is that all our websites now, for example, if you look at Reebonz, it's all localized. When I mean localized, it means localized delivery, localized payment options, language for sure, currency, etc., etc. Localized marketing, for example. So just to give you an example, in Indonesia, 60% of our payment comes from bank transfer. So it's something that is very unique to Indonesia, but it's not replicated here in Singapore, where bank transfer to pay for a luxury good is not something that an average person would do. It's credit card. Right? So again, that is a level of localization that we will do over and above maybe an e-commerce player that comes in from US or Europe to say that I want to start up in Southeast Asia. So I think number 1 was a deep level of localization to make sure that the content and what we were selling as a service and product was relevant to the local markets. Number 2, obviously, then is adaptability. Again, linked back to the first one, meaning that strategies in different countries will be different. You cannot have a one-size-fits-all that would maybe work in a huge domestic market like US, for example. So another example I can give you is that, for example, in Australia. So typically, Reebonz, we don't do much offline retail. I mean, Singapore, we have a store, but we do not do much offline retail. But in Australia, we saw a market gap, meaning that in Australia, there were no multi-label stores, like those that you would see in Japan and in Hong Kong. If you go Hong Kong, you walk, there are a lot of multi-label stores there. Right? So in that market, will you open up a retail channel to fight with the guys on the ground? Probably not, right, if you think about it. But in Australia, when you look at it, actually, no multi-label stores on the ground at all. So we decided to open our very first concept store in Sydney as a start. So, that was a strategy catered specifically for Australia. Will we open up 10 concept stores? The answer is no, I wouldn't do that, unless the market gap calls for it. So that is what I mean, I guess, by adaptability, in terms of being able to adapt your strategy based on the market that we have, based on the fragmented markets that we're trying to penetrate. Yeah.
Would you say that your drivers for exponential growth was timing, strategy, or would you say it's human capital or talents, or what would you attribute most of it to in terms of how Reebonz was just growing exponentially doing it from growth?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, obviously, it's a strong team. So I always believe that, people first before strategy and execution. So if you don't have the right people, no matter what strategy you put in place, most likely the strategy will fail. But if you have a very strong team, average strategy, I'm sure somehow along the way they could make it work as long as they're adaptable and hungry. So, people obviously, if you deem it as human capital, yes. I guess, secondly, in terms of exponential growth, again, is finding that core market segment that you are serving. We never believe that Reebonz serves everybody. And I think that's maybe a common misconception. Sometimes when you are a startup, you say that, hey, I want to serve the whole market. I mean, but even Airbnb started by serving a specific segment first. Uber started with black cars, they don't say serve everything. So you got to find that tipping point of the core segment that you're, I guess, serving. And for us, again, ladies 25 to 35, trying to access luxury for the first time, generally upper middle income, but not the uber rich. So we're very clear it's that segment. So in every market that we penetrated, we just went for this segment. Okay. Every market, right? So it's very clear that is a segment that would purchase or would believe and buy into our product and service. So that was, I guess, the reason why it was a very clear, strong focus. And that brought, I guess, the business upwards the first 3 to 4 years. But then again, every time, in every business there's a life cycle, right? So after 3 to 4, and now the life cycles are getting shorter and shorter. Last time, maybe a business model can last 10, 15 years before it's disrupted. Right now in the consumer internet age, every 3 years is being disrupted, right? From transport to hotels and all that. 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, you wouldn't think that the largest, I guess, accommodation provider will be owning no hotel rooms, right? So things like that, right? So things are being disrupted faster and faster. So even for us, I think we have had to evolve quite a bit over the last 8 years. So the first wave of growth, finding the right segment, but the second, third wave of growth that we have seen over the last maybe 5 years was because we've introduced other business models, for example. Yeah.
So talking about disrupting a market, right? Reebonz went into click and mortar outlet stores in Suntec.
Yes.
I don't know if the wisest thing to do, but Suntec, if you all know what Suntec is, try to get a rent over there. It's going to burn your pockets and everything else together with it, okay? So why the strategy to go offline and to be subjected to a fixed rental cost? I'm sure the pros outweighs the cons, and that's what we're here today for. Give us some insights on those.
Okay, so obviously the PR answer would be, omni-channel marketing was all the rage. So, Reebonz, being the market leader, decided to jump into that. But, to be very frank, I'll share you the true story on how that strategy actually evolved, right? So, I think it was late, 2010, and, we were chasing quarter sales. We were very, very focused on quarter results. So, we're chasing quarter sales, and we said that, hey, this quarter, I think, cannot make it. Sales cannot hit target. So, we're saying that, okay, what can we do? Okay, let's activate the offline sale. Let's test it out. Because for the first 1.5 years, we were going primarily online. We have not done anything offline in Singapore for the first 18 months. But we said, hey, I think let's activate something. Let's try whether offline, event could work. So our first event was actually at Suntec City, also, surprisingly or coincidentally. So we rented there's 2 ballrooms on the second, third floor. There's 2 ballrooms, probably the size of this space that we're sitting in. And we said, okay, let's just set up shop. We brought down, obviously, our staff. We brought down a few hundred bags. We laid it out. And obviously, the question in our minds was, would anyone turn up, on the day of sales? So that was the question that was burning our minds. I remember reaching the Suntec ballroom. The event was supposed to start at 12. I remember reaching there at 11:30. And then I saw a very long queue. Then I walked, and I realized that the queue was originating from the Reebonz ballroom. So the queue for that event lasted 2 hours. So some of the people in the queue queued 2 hours to enter the event. So that event was obviously a huge success, right? In one day, we generated a big amount of sales. And we thought that, wow, not bad. So we said, okay, better not be too rash to go and open up another a store straight away. Test out a second event. So we tested out a second event. And then a third. The third one was actually at Expo, so it was very big, 20,000 square feet, right? So actually, 10 times the size of this. Once that worked, then we said that, okay, people actually do buy online. Right? Do buy offline, and I think it's an important strategy. And we realized, more importantly, our online sales were not affected. So, we were reaching maybe a potentially new group of customers that were maybe not so comfortable buying something expensive online, because you must understand that the Reebonz average checkout values are easily, 700, 800 Sing dollars, which is expensive for someone, maybe a first-time buyer who does not know the brand so well. Will you pay out $800, and what if something happens, right? So there's a lot of, I guess, sometimes anxiety and obstacles to purchasing online, especially if the items are so expensive. So after that, we launched our very first store at Raffles City first, and then after that, we opened up at Suntec. So in terms of a click and mortar strategy, now, in hindsight, everything now blends together because we realized that there is a pool of customers that engage us offline first before converting online. So give you an example, 50% of our offline customers eventually go on to buy online. After they are familiar with the brand, they bought something offline first. They are okay, we have a shop front, this brand is legit, product is good. They say, okay, I will now buy online because they're comfortable. Right, 50% of them convert online. So with that ecosystem or that relationship being built, then it makes sense, right? I think also because of the category of products that we're in, high value items, it also makes sense to kind of operate a retail space because the checkout values, again, make sense to cover rent. The third factor, obviously, is the fact that recently, retail landscape has been a bit soft. Landlords are a bit more flexible, so we are very happy. Yeah, okay. Can take advantage of that.
So, just trying to understand a bit. So, click and mortar basically is, we're talking about people who normally generally come from online retailing, and they scale really fast, they go really big, decided to go into this market where people shop offline. And I think there are a couple of companies that do alongside with you. In the news article we talked about Lazada, Van actually came out with something, nice.com did as well. I mean, the idea behind this was talking about a holistic approach to kind of serve the consumer base. Do you see this as a consumer behavior, or do you see that it's just generally within Singapore? Do you see this replicating in Indonesia, China, Malaysia, and are you going that direction for click and mortar as part of your expansion plans moving next 5 years?
Yeah, good question. I think in terms of, I mean, many overseas companies have done it, right? Things like, companies like Warby Parker, for example, predominantly online, and then they set up experience stores. So I think, as a Reebonz brand experience, it's always going to be holistic. So the online experience has always been there. We've been doing it for 8 years. And then obviously the offline space has launched, right? So with that offline space, also you need to make sure that it makes sense, right? As an omni-channel strategy. So again, it depends on the market we're going to penetrate. So Australia with a store, Singapore with a store. Will I open a store in Hong Kong? Maybe not, until maybe economic/rental conditions maybe change, then maybe it makes sense. Right. So I'm very practical. Would it always be a click and mortar strategy across the board? I would say no. But for Singapore, definitely it works. More so also for Singapore, because again of the high value of our items, actually we also have something called relationship managers. So customers can actually click on our website and request a private viewing and come down to the store to view the item, especially the items are an expensive item. Because we have seen that most people will not be comfortable purchasing something more than $5,000 online. Anything more, they will want to view it first. So that is where I guess having a physical store, click, go down to the retail store, mortar, and then after that view and then purchase. Again, the conversion of someone going down to view is high, it's 40–50%. So once you have gone down, 1 in 2% will buy something. But he just needs to maybe have the assurance that he has somewhere to go to, touch and feel the product, and then after that purchase. So yeah, so I think to answer your question, I would say that for selective markets, I think that's a strategy we'll deploy, for sure. Maybe not so much for others.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So right now I want to bring us back to the time capsule, back to a student. Okay, just to address the student crowd right here. Although like myself, a lot of people are graduating, and I mean honestly, you were from finance and economics, and actually it's essentially the same thing as me. Sure. I can't imagine one getting into business, like this. That's number one. Sure. Number two, into handbags. Yeah. And women, luxury goods. And
but it's a good business to be in for a young, single 20-something-year-old guy at that point in time. So.
Was that the real idea?
Yeah, that was the only motivation.
Okay. Yeah, but okay, so I mean, what about your partners? I mean, how do you find partners? I think that's something that a lot of us face as challenges. We want to find someone that we can click well, but sometimes they're good as friends, maybe they're good as partners. Sometimes, you want, but at the same time, for business to work, you want someone that's complementary, someone that could work alongside with you for a long haul. How do you build that kind of a camaraderie and a team?
Okay, that's a tough question. I think no right answer. I mean, I guess sharing from personal experience, obviously the first pool of people that you look for when you're looking to start up business, friends and family, right? But obviously the danger there is that does things get, there's a very fine line, so do things get blurred. So would I recommend it? I guess yes and no. Again, it's personal opinion, right? But that's the first pool of people you look for. You go to your friends, or you go to your family and say, hey, I have this great idea, I want to start up something, let's do it together, right? So that's obviously number one. So for example, one of my partners from Reebonz is actually my army friend, right? So, we were in army, in the bunk, sometimes you have nothing much to do, so you discuss what you want to do when you ORD, right? Or when you pass out of army. So yeah, and then that's how it spun out. So it's a friend. So in my experience, that worked out. But again, working style, trust, and all that built up over many years. So I think that is something that sometimes it must build over time. I can't say for sure how you select, but for me, I guess quite blessed that a friend has accompanied me through this journey, and we work very well together. But I definitely agree on complementary styles. So if 2 or 3 founders agree on everything, it's either a match made in heaven or it's a disaster waiting to happen. Either one. It will not be, I guess, middle road, middle ground. Yeah.
Okay, maybe one more question. Let's say your son, okay, by the way, he's single, but he's going to get married, so congratulations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but let's say you have a son right now, okay?
Sure.
He comes up to you right now and you ask for $1,000. You say like, Daddy, I want to be exactly like you.
Okay.
Please give me $10,000, and what would you advise him?
Wow, okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is an interesting question. I just discussed this with my girlfriend or partner over the weekend, parenting style. So I told her that if my son asks me for money to start a business, I'll say I'll only match whatever that you already have, or you submit a business plan. Yeah. So I will never give him free rein and say, let's take 10,000 and go and run with it. I will say either you have something and I'm going to co-invest / put it in VC lah, like Eagles, yeah, Daniel Inc. So I will just invest and say, okay, then I'll leave him to run it, obviously with some guidelines and frameworks. But then after he can go and experiment. But if it's, I mean, that's personal opinion. If it's too easy to just receive the money, then you have not worked for it. Number one. Number two, you do not see the value of the money. Right. Yeah. So if you do not see the value of the money, then the decisions you take will not be, in my view, optimal, because again, the value of money was not earned and in that sense gotten, right? It was just received freely. Right. Yeah. So
okay, like, just analyzing your son right now.
Right. Yeah.
When would you be confident that he'll be ready to do business? What aspects are you looking at when you say that you know what, son, you're ready? I mean, I will not give you $10,000 because you go earn it yourself. But, when are you ready for this? When are you ready? What are some attributes do you think an entrepreneur must have? What kind of advice you want to give him? What are the challenges you're going to face that you don't want him to go through that same journey as well?
Sure. I mean, advice definitely can give, but in terms of him experiencing the entrepreneur journey, I think everyone's journey is different. But I guess key attributes that I guess most entrepreneurs I've seen would have, typically number one is you're never smarter than the market. So a lot of entrepreneurs that I met are very humble people. You know why? Because they are not smarter than the market, and they don't aspire to think that I know all the answers, but for them it's always trial and error. So sometimes a lot of them fail the fastest, meaning that I'll just try many things, but I fail the fastest and the market tells me what to do. Instead of me saying that, hey, I have this great idea, I design everything, and then I expect the market to adopt it. Most of the time it doesn't happen that way lah. I mean, if it does happen that way for somebody, he's very blessed and he's very lucky. But so I would say number one, obviously, is that you're not smarter than the market and you must be adaptable, right? And then number two, I guess, is just that inner resilience and determination not to give up, because many setbacks and obstacles along the way. So I think with these two, then it would, I guess, give him more chance of success, I would say. Yeah. So.
Okay, something I read on the news as well. Because after this, we'd like to open to the ground just to ask a few questions. If you all have, please do ask. If not, I have a lot of questions and I'll ask. Okay, Lazada got bought up by Alibaba recently. Zalora exceeded certain markets in Southeast Asia, as we know.
Sure.
What do you think the e-commerce landscape is like? Because I'm seeing a lot of things that are moving away. I'm seeing a lot of consolidation happening.
Sure.
I'm seeing the big players going bigger, a lot bigger.
Right.
The way they're expanding is very vastly different.
Sure.
So where, from your point of view, from Reebonz, where do you see you guys moving? I mean.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, and I think quite a timely one, I guess, in terms of e-commerce and all that. So I guess 2016 was quite a challenging year for e-commerce in general, right? I think like Mark, you mentioned, consolidation, some guys, I guess, falling out. So I think that will continue to happen because over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, e-commerce was the industry to be in. Very frankly, there's a lot of money pouring in, a lot of talent coming in as well, because obviously with money pouring in, then you hire the best talent, right? So a lot of talent coming in and all that. And obviously, that helped build the whole ecosystem, which is great. But obviously, sometimes, when you run a business, you just got to be prudent. And sometimes it's not the survival of the smartest, we always say internally, but survival of the fittest, or the ones that adapt the fastest, right? So it's not the survival of the smartest. So I think in that sense, I think we do see more and more consolidation happening, in my view. Will continue to happen. The e-commerce landscape in Singapore, in Southeast Asia in general, actually is still in its infancy. A lot of people say that, wow, Southeast Asia, 200 million people, many markets, Indonesia right at our doorstep, there's a lot of things happening. But I believe it's still in its infancy because when you look at the mobile penetration rates or even internet penetration rates in Southeast Asia, it's still low single digits. It's nowhere near China and US, which are very mature e-commerce markets that are, mid-teens, 12, 13, 14, 15% kind of penetration. So with that, e-commerce penetration, not mobile penetration. So with that, those markets are very mature. So we still have some time to get there. So I would say that the runway is long. We just have to make sure that we survive and make sure that we hit that runway in terms of maybe 5, 7 years when more and more of the markets in this region mature. Then that will get more exciting. So I think you just have to make sure that we survive till then, and then I think the future is bright.
So you believe that e-commerce will still evolve in
No, I think it's a consumer behavior. I mean, people are very comfortable purchasing online. So I think the user behavior is there. It's just that in terms of maybe, especially for our segment, it is a very niche segment. So we are not a mass market e-commerce player. We are a segment e-commerce player, and again, in the luxury space. So for us, I think it's just only when the mass affluent class gets bigger and bigger in many of these Southeast Asian developing economies, then we will see our runway get bigger. But again, it's from now to then, how do we stay fighting fit? Right.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll just open up to the floor to just ask any questions you want to ask to Daniel right now. We'll take around 2 or 3 questions before we close. So is there anybody who wants to ask a question? Yeah, please.
Okay, 2 questions.
Sure.
Please take your name and where you're
My
from.
name is Shishir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so when you started in 2009, so that time e-commerce was not that big. So did you have apprehensions that is it the right time? Because 8 years hence now it's big, but at that time. And secondly, how did you manage the funds? So did you get money from somewhere? Did you go for Series ABC? So if you can expound on that.
Okay, yeah, so I think good question. So at that point in time, again, I guess it was faith because we have seen that e-commerce picking up in a lot of other markets. So that, I guess, give us, some foundation in terms of thinking that e-commerce could work in Singapore. But again, the first 6 months of when Reebonz was founded was critical. So if, for example, we did not get traction in the first 6 months, we would have shifted for sure. I mean, I'm very clear that if you try all that you can for 6 months and it doesn't work, you have to pivot and do something else because the market is telling you that it cannot work. So, we were quite blessed in the sense that after 6 months, we realized that, hey, we managed to find this segment of customers that were willing to purchase luxury handbags at an attractive price online, and that fueled, I guess, our growth. And then it came the point in time, the question was, do we then scale up? Or do we then say, okay, let's, grow organically in Singapore. We'll probably have also reached a certain scale, okay, sizable. But then our dream and our aim was then we wanted to change how luxury was consumed online across Asia. So that was our very clear aim, and with that, then leads to your second question. Yeah, we had to go out to find capital. So we venture back. At that time, again, challenging I mean, the ecosystem of entrepreneurship and VCs and funds and incubators and accelerators. I mean, there was none then, in 2009. Is that correct? I don't know. So yeah, there was none. So, or rather, there was not that many. So for us, finding money was a bit more challenging. But I think the unit economics of the business made sense. They believe in the growth story, the angle. So then, yeah, we managed to raise, and I guess the rest is history.
And you said somewhere attractive prices. So that's your secret sauce. So there could be other luxury good companies online as well as offline in Suntec and all that. So why are people coming to your app, or why are they coming to your store? So what is the secret sauce over there?
No, I think definitely there are a few, reasons why people would purchase online. One is obviously price. Second is, convenience. And third, I would say, is rarity or items that maybe you can't find that easily, locally, for example. So I think, 3 factors. But to answer your question about price, we're probably not the cheapest. You could probably find something cheaper maybe on a box store. Or if you go to eBay, you could find something maybe cheaper for the same bag. But the question we realized that we had to answer in most people's minds when shopping for luxury online is this website trustworthy? Is the item real? So actually that was the biggest thing. And that's why for us, it's creating a trusted brand, number 1. And number 2, the easiest way to buy and sell. So again, customer experience, delivery times, packaging. Packaging is very nice. Packaging, right? So a lot of people underestimate the value of great packaging. So for example, we invest a lot into our packaging. People ask us, how come you spend $10 on your black box? It's $10 to make that box, by the way, so don't throw it away for those of you that have it. It's $10. So they ask us, why you spend $10 to, optimize, spend $2 to make a cardboard box? Then we say, no, when the lady opens up the black color box, she feels very happy. Yeah, that emotional connection. So going back, yeah, it's about a few factors that I guess creates a Reebonz experience that is unique to us. So it's not just purely about price, but convenience, Reebonz experience, trust, knowing that you can always come back to us, for example, to return and refund. Things like that creates a total experience in our view. Yeah.
Okay, there's someone there. You?
Yeah. Hong yeah.
I'm interested to find out at which point in time did you realize that you need to find funding, and what you intended the funding to be used for as an e-commerce?
Again, I guess it was, 6, 7, 8 months into the business, once we had traction, I think we had to then decide, do we stay, local and slowly build up, or do we have a chance maybe to just scale it out across, we're currently in 8 markets, we have offices in 8 markets where we ship, 30, 40 countries, for example. So I guess that was a decision point, and when we said we needed to scale up, then obviously we went to seek funding. So I wouldn't say it's the same for all e-commerce companies, but that was the point in time that we believed that the fundamentals of the business made sense. So I think maybe that would be a point I would say. Fundamentals of business make sense first. Don't just get funding when the fundamentals of the business doesn't make sense. Because you know why? After that, you have to spend a lot of time trying to make an answer. How come you waste the money, but you can't prove it? So it's only when you get tipping point or some traction and the fundamentals and unit economics for e-commerce made sense, then it makes sense maybe to raise funding and then use it for scale and growth. You cannot use funding to go and fund the business when it's losing money in terms of negative gross profit, right? So example in India, a lot of e-commerce players are negative gross profit businesses. Flipkart and all that, they are negative gross profit. So if you can't make money on the order, how are you ever going to cover costs, right? So all the money is sucked into that and marketing, which is a dangerous ball game in my view. But it's also a strategy. Some companies deploy that strategy. Personally, wouldn't. It's not our cup of tea, I would say. Yeah. So sorry, was there a second question? So that was when to get funding and.
What do you intended the money to be used for? As in, is it mainly human capital or was it marketing?
Well, we're generally quite prudent with marketing, so it would be human capital as well as for us inventory. Yeah. Yes. Hey, hello. No, just call me Daniel.
Just now you mentioned that like after 6 months, if your marketing strategy or your company did not work out well, right, you just ditch the idea or look for alternatives. But then if you take a look at, like, for example, Alibaba startup Jack Ma, right, his idea was rejected many times, and definitely he was rejected more than a period of 6 months.
Sure.
However, he still
persevered. Yeah.
And now he's a big company, Alibaba. So if that time he did not persevere, if the market tells him no, then he just gave up on his own idea, then there will be no Alibaba.
Okay, yeah, valid point. Again, I do not know what his, I guess, startup story is in terms of did he tweak his model? Did he think about other things that he needed to add on to the model? So when I mean, I guess, pivot means I would probably not have given up e-commerce per se, but maybe would it have been luxury goods? Would it have been handbags? Maybe I'll tweak it to say let's try other categories and then test it out. So I don't. I think maybe to elaborate or to clarify is probably not to ditch the whole idea, but to make sure you pivot and find something that would work. I'm more practical in that sense, lah. So again, personal opinion. Some people will stick it out for 2 years and then and then they say, okay, I give up. But for me, normally 6 to 9 months. For me, all effort in, full focus on this particular idea. If not, you have to evolve and adapt. That's my view, lah. Again. Not that I know exactly Jack Ma's startup story in the sense that whether he changed his idea a little bit, 5%, 10%, 15%, or 0, I'm also not sure. So, yeah.
But in my opinion, right, I think that to be successful, right, you have to change the market. You don't want to adopt the market. If you adopt the market, that means people have done that thing before already.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is obviously a big goal. But again, maybe personally, I'm a bit more cautious and risk averse. So typically for me, no, I mean the things that change the whole market. Example, I don't know, like if you do a SpaceX, that's what, But in my view, I'm not as smart as Elon Musk. Maybe I'm not there. So for me, it's always in terms of testing small things, failing fast, and then finding something that works. Again, this is based on personal values and all that, but not saying that that is the only way to success. Obviously, if you have a big idea and you think that that could tip the market and disrupt it totally, and if you believe in it, and people around you believe in it, and you have a strong team, then go for it. I mean, I wouldn't discourage you otherwise.
Hello, I'm Madeline. I would like to ask, right, apparently this industry is actually very saturated, right?
Sure.
And it's like a red ocean. So what are some of the strategies that you see in the long run, right, to delve into the blue ocean?
One of my favorite books is Blue Ocean Strategy. Yeah, so when we started Reebonz, it was a blue ocean. Then it became a red ocean. And then now it became a bit more blue. Okay, now I give you an example. So when we started Reebonz, I think we were one of the first e-commerce luxury players in Singapore, and then consequently the region. And then again, straight away, once people see that the business model is working, and this seems to work, competition comes in, right? That's the same with every industry. And then I was just telling Mark, in 2011, 2012, probably 5, 6, 7, I guess, players in the exact same space. But some of them have fallen out, some of them are still there. But again, that was a pure consolidation. But we're very focused on what is the core of Reebonz. So going back to accessible luxury, how do we change how people buy and sell luxury. So we realized we started only as a B2C retailer. But then after that, selling brand new goods. After that, we realized that, hey, maybe pre-owned could work. And the reason for that was because I saw many pre-owned Chanel bags being traded at high value still. So Chanel bags somehow retain their value, maybe because every lady loves a Chanel bag. So we're thinking, hey, could pre-owned work? Started selling pre-owned, and then yes, it worked. So that was, I guess, a small little inflection there in terms of how we pivoted the model. And then we said, could we also enable people to sell? Because why ladies use their bag 2 years. I saw a lot of my lady friends and even my girlfriend, hey, wow, so many bags in the cupboard, don't use it, because out of fashion, cannot use, right? So what do they do with that? Gather dust at that point in time. So we said, hey, let's help them sell the bags, right? So we launched a service to help them sell. So now you can sell through Reebonz, right? So step by step, we were evolving the strategy to find our own unique blue ocean. Would this work for a mass market e-commerce player? Probably not, because you don't sell a $30 maybe Zara t-shirt you bought. There's no resale value there, but for luxury, there was resale value. So then we said that, could we then evolve that? So selling was the next one. Then we realized, I was in Europe, and then I was looking, hey, there are many nice vintage shops here. So the next thing was that, could we enable merchants from other parts of the world to ship into Asia? So we launched a merchants marketplace. So I mean, the business has been evolving to find our very own, I guess, blue ocean, if you want to call it that way. But I think underlying that is, again, vision of accessible luxury, easiest way to buy and sell. And more importantly for us, our strategy is not to go wide, meaning that I don't think you'll see Reebonz selling mass market products, or we won't be going to electronics, for example. That's just not our brand name. We are very focused in luxury fashion, but we go very deep. So we want to own the customer lifetime journey. We believe that luxury consumption is a 10, 15, 20-year journey. A lady buys her first bag at 25, and she doesn't stop buying until 65 or 85, I don't know, right? So no, it's a lifetime journey, and one of the key emotional or psychological triggers about luxury, I realize, is that it is emotional, meaning that it is aspirational to upgrade. You will always want to upgrade. Means today you carry this bag for 2 years, you cannot buy the same brand again, maybe, unless you really love the brand. But otherwise, you need to upgrade. And that is it's human psychology actually, but even in luxury, it seems to be more pronounced, right? But I'm sure across all categories, it would be there, from cars to whatever, watches, they would do that. So so our aim is to just journey the customer over 15, 20 years. So instead of owning multiple categories, we own one category, luxury fashion, but we own the lifetime.
Yep, sorry, yes.
My name is Gabriela. My question is, after having the brilliant idea of your startup in your mind, what would you recommend beginning entrepreneur to be the first steps to focus on and to do?
Okay. Once the idea has already been formed, or once the idea has been formed, or you're still in the midst of...
Once the idea has been formed, yeah.
Okay. I would say put it out to market as fast as possible to get feedback. Yeah, means don't spend too much time trying to build a perfect product for a start. Yeah, don't spend too much time there. Launch it out first, get some test feedback, and then from there you iterate and then tweak it. Because the most, I guess, one of the biggest blind sides of any entrepreneur is that they think that they know the best, right? So again, if you are Steve Jobs, I think maybe can, no problem. He'll create a whole new way of something. But for example, me, I would launch something out into the market as fast as I can, and then after that, test it, get some feedback, and then from there, iterate. That's just how I guess I operate. But just launch it out first. Don't try to build a perfect product, because it will never be perfect for everybody. Oh, and one more thing, find that segment that you, very clear segment. It must be very clear, and you cannot just say this product is for everybody for a start. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Hi. At the start, right? You mentioned that you didn't have capital until the 6 months past of the CPTC. Right? How do you manage your cash flow to get? Because Reebonz, the inventory, I'm sure is quite a bit of money. How do you manage your cash flow to make sure that you can continue your operations throughout the 6 months?
Well, at the start, we're working a lot on consignment. To be very frank, consignment with multiple partners, right? So in terms of cash flow, we didn't have to buy that much inventory upfront. And I think for us, being a bootstrap startup for the first 6 months, it was really just scrambling there's no marketing budget, for example, so we had to think of many creative ways. So one of our most successful early marketing campaigns was a friend refer a friend program. Right, refer a friend, they buy something, you get 25 credits. So that was actually, for the first maybe 3-4 years, it was the most effective and lowest cost marketing channel for us, and it cost us nothing. Right, we didn't go and do a TV ad, even though now we've been on TV, but that was 5 years later. So we didn't do all that. So I think we were just very prudent, and then just finding the right segment. So we work with, for example, banks. It's free. You just have to go to the bank and say, hey, you want to target your lady customers. We have this website with nice luxury products that they could spend on, and it worked for them. So a lot of partnerships, a lot of, but again, I think the underlying thing is that don't spend what you cannot afford, and just be very prudent. So that was how we survived until the business was generating enough revenue for us to think that, hey, I think this is something that could, grow further. Then, yeah. But even after raising money, I think a common misconception is now you have money, you spend more freely. My view is, no. Always keep the principles of the fact that if you have $1, just imagine if you only have $1 to spend and it's your last dollar, where will you bet it on? If every decision you make revolves around that, then you'll always be prudent. Means if you only have $1, means don't think I got 1 million in my bank. If I only had this $1 left, will I spend it on marketing idea A, B, C, or would I maybe go and buy inventory, or maybe would I go and hire one more staff? If you have $1, when you have more than that, then sometimes that's when discipline is difficult. But you should always try to go back to that principle, in my view.
Any more questions?
Brian here. I study IT. And I just have a question.
Sure.
Why do you choose to buy out a competitor, the Singpost version of Reebonz, in 2014, right? Is it 14? I saw an article.
It was a cloud shop, they were called.
Yep.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. And
So the question was, can you repeat your question again?
Okay.
why did Reebonz want to buy out that company?
Okay.
Off from Singpost.
Okay.
And what are the considerations that you all had in mind for that decision?
That was what, 2014, if I'm not wrong, 2013, 2014. But I mean, they were looking to exit the business at that point in time, and I think the deal just made sense for both parties. So I guess Singpost invested into them. They ran the business for a while, and then after a while, again, consolidation, right? With every industry and business life cycle, there will always be a period of consolidation. So, I can't really answer why, except for the deal makes sense for both parties, for us as well as for them. And your second question was, what are the considerations? I can't really answer that except for the fact that it makes economic sense for both parties to do it. But just be careful that, okay, so maybe I'm trying to sense the question beneath your question. It was not a growth strategy to acquire and grow faster. I don't know whether that answers your question, but.
Okay, for sum up. Any other questions? Okay, you got last 2 questions, okay? No? Yes, please.
Okay, so the factory outlets is very popular in the US, and they have factory outlets in Indonesia as well. So how do you perceive this competitive landscape? How do you navigate? Because they are selling luxury products at discounted price as well.
So offline luxury factory outlets, right? So if you think about it, I guess, again, going back to the very start, Reebonz was actually bringing the whole factory outlet concept online. That was how we started. B2C, we brought, factory outlets are generally quite inaccessible. I think the nearest one to Singapore now is, there's IMM being built up as a factory space, but there's one in JB, for example. So actually when we started, that was that, right? Accessible luxury, we brought the factory outlet concept online. But I think, how we, I guess, differentiate now a lot is the fact that, going back again to the Reebonz whole experience, it is no longer just buying something brand new at a cheap price from us. Yes, that could be one angle, but you can also do many other things. You can do selling. You can also buy pre-owned that factory outlets will not have. You can also buy from merchants all around the world that a factory outlet will not have. You can download our mobile app and sell to a community of people. So I think there are many strategies that we have built around Reebonz that, again, goes back to making buying and selling luxury easy. And it moves away from, I guess, just a pure play price comparison. And that's how we have seen it.
Okay, sorry, we'll have one more from Purple Chip. I asked yet, okay? Okay,
My name is AC.
Yeah, hi.
Just want to.
Sorry, you got to speak up a little bit so the rest can hear what you're saying.
Can you share the experience that when you launched the Reebonz? Like, what did you do for the marketing before you launched this product, launch this brand?
Okay. So I think going back to the same question, similar question, in terms of, bootstrap startup, and I never believe in big bang marketing campaigns for a start, especially when you're launching a new product. You don't go and get a TV ad, or you don't go and put up a billboard in Orchard Road and, launch something. We're always very cautious when we launch something. Normally launch quietly first, get some user feedback before we decide to scale up marketing until it makes sense. And also by the fact that we're constrained by having no budget, so we couldn't do all the above that I just mentioned. So again, going back, it was again a friend referral program that we came up with that was the most effective marketing channel for us. So that was by far, in the first year, almost all our traffic came from just friends, referring friends. And then again, just going back to your call, building a great product and service, delivering a great experience. Customers talk, right? Because you buy something online, great packaging, you unwrap it, you tell your friends, hey, there's this website I can buy cheap bags from, example. So I think that is more important for us. So until you get your pool of early adopters, you have market traction, then you can maybe be a bit more aggressive, and then the usual comes in, search engine marketing and all that we have deployed, and we still continue to do so. But we're always very cautious on launching a service like, wow, boom, big bang, $1 million, and all that. We typically do not do that. That's just not our style. Yeah.
Okay, so we have two questions, right? You and you. Okay, you're going to ask your questions and you answer it in the last 5 minutes.
Okay.
Rich, you ask your question first and you ask the question as well. Let you answer it.
So it was about the challenges of scaling up. So how many people do you have now, and what are the challenges in terms of a leader driving this team and scaling the whole organization?
Okay. So
team.
Okay, your question?
My question is if you see a potential for Reebonz outside Southeast Asia, and Australia, for example, and Europe.
Good question. Okay, so I guess scaling up the team. Reebonz, we have now, I guess, 8 offices, total staff strength maybe about 350 across multiple offices. So challenge there is aligning everyone towards the same vision, especially when you're growing very fast and there's a lot of chaos. Because we still view ourselves as a fast-growing startup. So with that, sometimes system processes are not fully in place. We've gotten to a scale that sometimes companies take 30 years to get to, right? So a lot of that is not in place and there's a lot of chaos. But at the end of that all, can you align everybody towards a common goal? I think that's something very important, number one. And obviously then find a great group of people. So our core team is obviously very important, with a team of 20, 30 key managers that then helps to align the business. But again, aligning them towards a great goal so that everyone is aligned and rowing in the same direction. So we believe that an aligned team can beat a team that has a lot of resources but is disaligned. So I think that's something for us that is very key. And I hope that answers your question. Sorry, I didn't get your question. I can't remember it.
My question was if you see a potential for Reebonz outside Asia, for example.
Got it. So again, it's just deciding our sandbox, right? Where do you want to play? So for us, it's Asia Pacific at this point in time. But actually, interestingly, the US is a great market. So we've started to ship into the US in the last 6-9 months. And obviously being such a big market, can we take even a small pie of that? It would be sizable. So as with e-commerce, as the base operations are there, you can ship anywhere in the world. It's just finding the right entry into that market. So core would still be Asia-Pac, very clear. Obviously Southeast Asia being the one with the most potential in the next maybe 5-7 years. But if there's a great opportunity and a great entry into a market like a US or even a Europe, for example, then I would say yes. But not, I guess, core priority. Yeah, got to choose your battles.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being here.
Thank you.
Before I leave, I would like to just invite Mr. Kofu, the head of IE, to present something. I hope this is like some kind of Tiffany & Co. Is it? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. No problem. Thank you. Wow, so formal. Okay, thanks.